Heating a barn with a candle. I tried it today. It was mixed success, but I had some things going against it. For one thing, it was 10 below last night. The barn has no doors, just curtains. It didn't get above 14 degrees today that I know of, and I only had one candle. It was the wrong kind of candle too. It was a fat candle. It was about that big around. It was about that high, but it only had one wick. That amount of paraffin, if I'd had it separated with say 4 wicks, that would have been a much more successful experiment. But I say a mixed success. It was a success. And you might well think that, oh, this is clickbait, putting down heat a barn with a candle. That's absurd. Well, depends what you mean by heating. I didn't try to heat the whole barn. The critical part of the barn that I wanted to heat, needed to heat really, to be able to work there, was small, very small. It was my fingers. My fingers, my hands, but especially my fingers, they are my Achilles heel when it comes to this kind of cold. I could only work so long before they would simply go numb and they wouldn't work anymore, and the pain was great. So if I had just had a place where I could warm my hands, that would have kept me working longer. And it did, actually, with that one wick. I needed a more wicked stove, more wicked stove. But I'm proud of my little stove. I'll show it to you in a video, maybe tomorrow. But the stove was dead cold. I mean, the stove was below zero, so that one little candle was having to warm it up. But after an hour or so, I could put my hands on it and feel the warmth. And I'll go back to it. Now, when I came inside, I learned this is a school, and that's the principal thing to do here. Really, is to learn. And when I came inside, my fingers and hands were just so cold. But what I did was I took from above the furnace that heats the house 2 tiles. I have them laying there. Now, I've got them on gloves because they're pretty, I warmed them back up. I don't want to burn myself. But there's one of them, and there's the other. I have a bunch of them up there. And now, with them, my hands were just so cold. I knew enough to not just smack my hands right down on them because they're really too hot for that. But little at a time, I could put my hands on them. It's probably out of sight, you probably can't see. And I warmed my hands back up. And this was the kind of thing I needed. Now, that idea, and if I had a bunch of these, I could and I do have a bunch of them, they just warmed up. And if I put them in 2 buckets, I could carry 2 buckets of warmth out to the barn. And I might, because that makes all the difference. I could warm my hands up, and then I could go on working. The nature of my work is such that I can't do it with gloves on. I have to take the gloves off to use the tape measure, to use the chalk, even to use the skill saw. But as I say, it was a mixed success. I've ordered some votive candles. They're also called tea candles, and you can get 100 of them for about $5. They're about that big around and about that high, and they burn for 8 hours. Now shipping adds more, but the listed price is about $5 for 100. Now that makes 5 cents a piece for heat of 8 hours. And if I had had 4 of them, it would have been a fine success. But of course, I have to be careful too, of being in a barn with hay and all that kind of stuff in. But I am careful. Now, one other thing I wanted to show you here is this. I have to be careful with it too because I keep it over the stove all the time. This has a handle on it, and it's soapstone, and this is an antique. It's what don't burn my belly. It's what they would carry in horse and buggy days and put under the seat as they'd ride home. They'd carry that, they'd warm it up and carry it out. So I have that laying on gloves because they're pretty warm. So it's to be continued. This isn't clickbait. And I think there's a real lesson to be learned here. Heating a huge space is one thing. Heating just enough for what you need is something else. To be continued. Bye for now.